Evergreen, Everfree, written by Blair Galt. Extraordinary Exchanges. Pinkie Pie was taking a nap, dreaming about eating every last cake in Equestria as her leg involuntarily twitched from the actions of running away from the dreaded cake police. She was completely oblivious to the outside world, and did not know Gummy was standing on the window on his hind legs, looking out at the Everfree forest. You wouldn't know it from looking at him, but he was capable of thought. Sort of. His tiny reptile brain could process roughly one thought at a time, but the current one floating through his mind roared louder than any dragon. Must go. Gummy clawed at the windows furiously, leaving a giant patch of scratch marks before moving on to hitting the window with his head, which did more damage to his skull than the glass. Gummy didn't know that concept of frustration. He didn't really know the concept of anything. But he did know that he had to get outside and into the big patch of green beyond the strange invisible barrier that impeded him. After one particularly forceful hit, Gummy fell away from the window, landing on his back. He squeaked and struggled a bit before righting himself in the direction of the room's door, which seemed different. The alligator called upon every brain cell to solve the mystery of the changed door, and after several minutes intense thinking he arrived at the conclusion that it was slightly ajar, giving him the escape route he needed. He waddled his way to freedom, his owner ignorant to his escape. "No, officer, not county jail." "Anything but." Pinkie stirred in her sleep before bolting up, covered in sweat, and panting. She checked her hooves to make sure they weren't bound in frosting hefts and chuckled mischievously. "Heh. Got away again." The entire room suddenly began shaking, which was accompanied by a loud growl. Still laying on her back, Pinkie glanced at her tummy. I haven't had a triple tooty terror tricky twist taffy in a few days. That should make Mr. Stomach happy." The pink pony twirled off the bed and landed on the floor in a fox ballerina pose. She gave herself a 7/10. Needed more fireworks. "Gummy," she called, "let's go get some dinner." Normally this would have prompted the small alligator to attack her with his harmless gum line of missing teeth, but her pet remained mysteriously absent. Pinkie broke away from her pose. "Gummy," she asked as she began pacing around the room and checking all his favorite hiding spots. She checked under the bed. "Gummy." She checked the curtains. "Gummy." She opened the closest. "Gummy the Guminator." Pinkie closed the closet doors and shrugged. Must have gone down the stairs by himself. She happily trotted down to the first floor, where Mr. and Mrs. Cake were busy preparing some lavish confection. "Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Cake. Have you seen Gummy?" Mr. Cake shook his head. "Can't say that I've." "Mrs. Cake." "Sorry dearie, I haven't." "Did you check the closet?" "Uh-huh." "Oh my. You don't think he could have gotten out, do you?" Pinkie waved the suggestion away. "No. I'll always make sure to close the door. My room is a fortress. Locked in a super fortress. Well, the wind could have blown it open. It has been a bit brisk today." Pinkie gasped and ran upstairs to see her door cracked, leaving just enough space for a certain baby alligator to get through. "Gummy." Pinkie moved at insane speeds as she grabbed and interrogated every pony in town to Gummy's whereabouts. "Have you seen Gummy? Have you seen Gummy?" One pony was about to eat soup at a restaurant when she burst out of the bowl. "Tell me you've seen Gummy." Her legs were quickly running dry as she reached the edge of the town. She sat on her rump and yelled to the heavens, "Gummy, where did you go?" Before unleashing a torrent of tears. Pinkie watered the ground for a good while before she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned around with wet eyes to see Tom Turner. "Oh, is that Gummy?" he said, pointing toward the Everfree forest. Just at the edge was a small, green blob moving in an unmistakable gait. Pinkie's sorrows were gone immediately. "Gummy!" she squealed with glee. The tiny alligator heard his name and turned around to see his master smiling at him. He blinked unevenly before plodding into the thick brush of the forest. "Gummy! Wait!" she cried and took after him. By the time she crashed into the flora of the Everfree, she couldn't see hide nor scale of the little critter. "Gummy! Come back!" she called, hoping he would respond. "If you come back I'll get you some more of those animal crackers you like." Her temptations went unanswered. She continued to call out his name and promise him increasingly ridiculous things for his return, including switching places with him. After a couple of hours she walked into a clearing, and a Gummy's future was looking very certain. With tears in her eyes she slowly walked to an old and decrepit well which stood at the top of a small hill. She slumped on the edge of it, lazily pushing a pebble into the dark abyss below. "Gummy, where did you go?" Mabel laughed as she and Suze launched oversized bottle rockets into the air from a giant novelty tin can they found in the trash. "Well, that was a good one. I think you started a fire down," Suze said, ignoring the fact that he had been rendered temporarily blind from the bright explosion. Waddles aimed in agreement, his pig brain completely enamored by the bright lights and loud sounds. Mabel picked a big fat red rocket out from the pile they had amassed in a wooden crate. This one's called the Obliterature. Ooh, awed Suze. The little label says it's banned in 122 countries. That's how you know it's fun. Grunkle Stan called out from his grill. At this point Dipper emerged from the house, holding underarm the thick book that he had discovered on his first day in Gravity Falls. What's going on out here? Stan waved at his great-nephew. Happy Independence Day, Dipper. Oh, Grunkle Stan. It's not the 4th of July, not that Independence Day. Back in 1899, Gravity Falls voted to secede from the Union and become the glorious Republic of Gravelphilia. You're kidding, they voted themselves back in a month later after the novelty wore off. But I respect our history. I respect it so much that I let my niece play with light artillery. Mabel and Sue lit the Obliterature, which flew off into the backyard and exploded into a skull-shaped mushroom cloud from behind the shack. Come on, Dipper. Mabel replied, pulling out another rocket. The one she retrieved was pure black, covered in a decal of the demon riding a flaming motorcycle made of bones. These fireworks are awesome. I'll pass, he said before heading back inside. Sue set the fuse on the next rocket, sending it screaming into the air. It flew higher than most and detonated hundreds of meters above the yard. The explosion effect was a curious one, 2 giant glowing strips of bacon, and a sizzling sound produced by the leftover burning gunpowder. Waddles took one look at the display and squealed, darting off in the opposite direction of the sky meat. Mabel took chase. Waddles, wait. The rocket didn't mean it. Sue shrugged before setting up another missile, and Grunkle Stan laughed quietly to himself. Man, that pig really wouldn't want to know what I'm cooking right now. Mabel chased Waddles around the house a few times before becoming winded. The pig's fat betrayed his speed, and Mabel would need outside assistance if she was to catch him before he ran away. She went inside the house, where Dipper was sitting in Grunkle Stan's recliner, his nose buried deep within his book. The current passage that Dipper was reading was fascinating. Therefore, I have come to the conclusion that Gravity Falls lies in a particularly weak area between dimensions. So weak, in fact, that a tunnel or hole dubbed to certain specific dimensions could become a two-way wormhole. I believe I may have found just such a portal, which is, Dipper. He looked up from his book to see Mabel, clutching the doorway frame, gasping for breath. Bacon. Fireworks. Running, you need help catching Waddles. Mabel nodded weakly. Dipper closed his book but still carried with him as they both walked outside. Waddles was still circling the house at varying pig-like speeds, and had started forming a small groove around the mystery shack. Suze was too enchanted by the fireworks to lend any assistance, and Stan was lazy, so they were on their own. Dipper outlined a plan where he would stand at Waddles' way, which would cause the pig to turn around. Then Mabel would jump on him and end his little marathon. Short and simple. They waited until Waddles was on the other side of his track to take up positions. As expected, Waddles came barreling around the house until he saw Dipper in front of him. He skidded and attempted to run the other way, and Mabel jumped on top of the swine. Gotcha. Mabel couldn't celebrate just yet, though. Instead of giving up, Waddles ran off toward the woods with Mabel still clutching onto him. She screamed for help all the way as Dipper ran off after them, all three fading into the thick pine trees. Shouldn't we, help them? Suze asked. Stan pointed his spatula accusingly towards Suze. Hey, a summer spent not screaming for help on the back of a runaway pig is a summer wasted. Suze scratched his neck but thoughtfully. True. Meanwhile, Waddles was expertly dodging Dipper's every attempt to catch him, weaving in and out of the increasingly dense shrubbery. Dipper almost considered dropping his book to gain speed, but it was too valuable to ever let out of his sight. Mabel was still crying for assistance when Dipper chased the pig through a wall of vines and dead branches, which led to a small open area in the middle of the woods. Mabel finally let go when Waddles slowed down slightly, plopping right next to a ruined mine shaft that was strangely situated in the exact center of the clearing. Waddles continued to run circles in the field, but Dipper ignored him as he went to his sister's aid. Mabel. Are you okay? I'm a princess. Are you a princess too? She mumbled, her eyes rolling. That wasn't a completely odd response from his sister, and he sighed in relief. He looked up at Waddles, who showed signs of fatigue. I guess I'll just wait here until he tires himself out. Dipper sat down and placed his sister's head on his lap before opening his book to kill time. He continued from the place he left off, where the mysterious author was talking about some kind of portal. He turned the page, which had the sketching of an old mine shaft, which was circled with writing alongside it. This is it. I've seen things emerge out of here that defy the limitations of the imagination. This old silver mine shaft must lead to a world profoundly different from our own, but sharing enough physical laws to allow free access between the two. It seems all someone or something needs to do to go to the other side is simply fall down the portal. Tomorrow, I'll begin my expedition into this strange land. If the journal ends here, well, you can guess what happened to me. The sketch prompted Dipper to look behind him. The shaft in the clearing looked exactly like the one in the drawing. It was the one in the drawing. Before he had an opportunity to rise up and inspect it, Mabel began to come to and she rose up, holding her head. "What year is it?" she asked before turning to the still rampaging beast. Waddles is one very fit pig. Dipper ignored her and was leaning over the rotten wooden shaft, peering into the darkness below. "I can't see anything." Just then, a strong gust blew from behind Dipper, sending his trademark hat off his head and down the mine shaft, prompting a panicked "oh no." He watched helplessly as it tumbled down the cavern and was swallowed by the inky blackness. Pinkie Pie was still looking down into the well, the dark waters at the bottom just barely visible. She was trying to remember all the good times she had with Gummy, because it seemed like they were at an end. As she recalled all tickly bitings the alligator had ever given her, she heard a squeak. She could hardly believe her eyes when she glanced up and saw Gummy perched on the opposite side of the well, looking at her with vacant eyes. "Gee, Gummy!" she shrilled with joy, and attempted to grab him from the other side of the well. "Come to Pinkie. She'll take you out of this mean old forest." The alligator stood still. He certainly didn't point out that in her haste, Pinkie Pie was starting to lean over the side of the stone well. He was almost within reach of Pinkie when her front end began to tilt ominously downward. When she was well past the point of return, Gummy looked down the well. Pinkie looked too, and realized that she no longer had any part of her body actually hanging onto the well. She was floating in midair, and gravity was just about to catch up with her. "Whoops," was all she was able to say before plummeting into the dark chasm, her caterwails echoing up the well walls until they finally faded away. Oddly enough, there was no splash. Gummy blinked. Dipper sat with his arms folded as he watched Waddles make his rounds. How much energy did that animal have? "We should make pig riding a sport," Mabel said. "We could make gasolines." Mabel's business proposition was cut short when another rocket soared into the air and exploded into the shape of sliced ham. Waddles saw it and immediately switched directions away from it, and right towards Mabel and Dipper. The twins dodged out of the way as the pig crashed into the side of the mine shaft, collapsing it. The pig flew down the shaft, wailing all the way. Pinkie and Waddles were falling in darkness. Pinkie up, Waddles down. As they both screamed on their respective journeys, they did manage to catch sight of each other in the black void, gaining eye contact for just a moment before their speeds separated them. Neither of them had time to contemplate the strange nature of their fellow traveler when bright points of light quickly came upon them, engulfing them. Waddles was promptly spat out of the well with Gummy still in the well's edge. The pig yanked and walked off into the forest. Gummy crawled off the well and followed. Mabel was rocking in a fetal position with her brother trying to console her and had no time to react when the mine shaft produced a pink object which shot out of the well, did a small arc, and landed right beside the both of them with a plop. It then opened its large eyes and smiled. Mabel was pretty much convinced that she had gone insane from the loss of her pig when it spoke. "Hi, I'm Pinkie Pie. Did a little alligator follow me through the hole?" Thanks for watching.